And as Germany began to rearm, its leaders planned the death blow for the German Republic. True, they had already taken it over for their purposes, installing the aged von Hindenburg as president. But it was still in structure a democracy, and that meant liberals and unions and free speech and a free opposition. And the German leaders knew, as Frederick and Bismarck and the Kaiser had known, that you can't start ruthless aggression abroad without ruthless discipline at home. Therefore, the time had come for the Republic to be eliminated. To achieve this, they needed a tool with which to appeal to the Germans' old passion for superiority and conquest. Not a feudal monarch this time like Frederick, nor an aristocratic landowner like Bismarck, nor an emperor like the Kaiser, but an ex-corporal of the German army, with a fanatic gleam in his eye and the power to arouse a mob. Preaching the same old doctrine as his predecessors, the old doctrine that had never failed to arouse the German people. Himself jobless, uneducated, cowardly, resentful, Hitler gathered around him misfits like himself, people obsessed with grievances, real or imaginary, people who weren't as prominent as they thought they should be, people with inferiority complexes who wanted to shout with a crowd, people who wanted power but were too lazy to work for it, sheep anxious to be led, dope addicts, perverts, bullies, cranks. Unfortunately, those Germans who were liberally minded regarded Hitler as either a joke or a nuisance. But the German nationalists well knew his possibilities. They knew that he was capable of administering the death blow to the German Republic, of forging the German people into a single mold. By the monarchists, who saw in him their chance to restore the Hohenzollerns to the throne, backed by big business, who saw in him their chance at economic domination of the world, backed by thousands of ordinary Germans, who saw in him their chance to strut as conquerors across the world. With the backing of all these groups, Hitler soared ahead, skillfully appealing to the German tradition, the old cry of the master race. The Nazis promised all things to all men. To the workers, they promised higher wages. To the employers, lower wages. To the tenants, they promised lower rents. To the landlords, higher rents. To the farmer, higher prices. To the consumer, lower prices. But most of all, they promised revenge on the world, that Germany would become its most powerful empire. Hitler knew his audience, and by 1933, the Nazis received more votes than any other political party. And von Hindenburg installed Hitler as its leader, as German Chancellor. This was the death blow the nationalists had planned. From that moment, the German Republic was dead. 4 weeks later, the Nazis set fire to the Reichstag and screamed that the crime had been committed by the communists. Using this as an excuse, Hitler declared a state of emergency and assumed dictatorial powers. From this, it was only a step to the abolition of all political parties. In the new Reichstag, there was only one party, Hitler's party. In the new Reichstag, there was no debate. The deputies were stooges who applauded, got paid, went home. Trade unions were abolished. Instead, the German Labor Front, to discipline the workers and teach them what to think. Music, literature, all outlawed or destroyed, unless it supported what the German leaders were trying to sell. Scientists, physicians, their professions were banned to them unless they supported the Nazi ideology. Bismarck had added the industrialist as the fourth pillar of the warlike state. Hitler added a fifth, the professional gangsters, armed thugs to enforce his decrees. And as the German officer had been the ideal of the Kaiser's Germany, the stormtrooper became the idol of Hitler's. Persecution was on the march. Freedom of speech? Now that meant the concentration camp, torture, death. Freedom of religion? Riots. and church burnings. Freedom of opinion, the executioner and his acts. Freedom of the press, the Gestapo took care of that. Now Carl Schmitt could be indoctrinated like his father and his grandfather before him. But this time, even more thoroughly, more efficiently, with all the resources of science and the modern state. The German press became a Nazi press. The German airwaves open only to Nazi voices. Nazi papers, Nazi books, Nazi pamphlets. These were all the people could read. Nazi speeches, Nazi dramas, Nazi music. These were all the people could hear. The art of Germany, the sculpture, the paintings, the drama, all regimented to serve one purpose, the indoctrination of Carl Schmitt. One voice only must be heard by Carl Schmitt. One voice from the cradle to the grave. The voice of Hitler. 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 Scores of microphones and cameras were used to photograph Hitler and record his voice so that all of Germany and others throughout the world could receive his message of hate and hypocrisy. So Hitler was photographed from the front, from the back, from the right, from the left, from every angle. Hitler, Hitler, Hitler. Hitler sobbing, Hitler smiling, Hitler shouting, Hitler working his people into a frenzy. In my schools, a youth will grow up before which the world will shrink back. There must be no tenderness in youth. I want to see in their eyes the gleam of the beast of prey. Brutality is respected. I shall spread terror. Today, Germany. Tomorrow, the world.
That's how Carl Schmitt got his soul. That's how the General Staff, the big industrialists, the state officials, the landowners, the gangster chieftains, put their plans into effect and prepared Carl Schmitt for his generation's attempt to smash the world into submission. That's how Carl Schmitt was trained for conquest, just as his father was trained by the leaders of his generation, and his father before him. Each generation accepting and adding to the German tradition. The tradition of ruthlessness and medieval barbarism. The tradition of a master race. The tradition of German superiority. The false picture of the world inside German heads. These are some of the explanations for the murdered Poles in Lublin. The murdered Italians in Rome. The murdered Belgians at Bandé. The murdered Americans at Malmedy. And these are the reasons why, in our generation, nearly 30 million men have had to die. Because deep in the soul of Carl Schmitt has been planted the love of aggression and conquest. And unless that passion is uprooted, 10, 20, or 100 years hence, a new generation of Germans will find a new leader who will show them the way. How shall that be prevented?
A sound beginning has been made. This time, things are being done differently. At the end of the last war, an armistice by negotiation. This time, unconditional surrender. Today, Carl Schmitt knows beyond the shadow of a doubt that he was defeated. At the end of the last war, German armies parading through Berlin. This time, the legend of German invincibility lies once and for all a shattered myth. After the last war, the German General Staff continued to function. Today, not only the General Staff, but the entire German Officers' Corps will be dissolved, and they will be forever prevented from plotting another German attempt at world conquest. After the last war, German industry was unimpaired. Today, much of it lies in ruins, and such undamaged industrial plants as are permitted to operate will operate under Allied control. After the last war, the same state officials remained in office. Today, any Nazi is forever barred from having authority. After the last war, the Kaiser found refuge in Holland, and anyone else who thought they were in any danger ran away. Today, proven war criminals must answer for their crimes. After the last war, German education was untouched. Today, all Nazi doctrine has been destroyed. New textbooks prepared for German youth under our direction, not the German. After the last war, this small area of Germany was occupied. Today, every square inch is under the authority of Allied troops. At the end of the last war, this was the government of Germany. Today, this is the government. We have come to Germany not as liberators, but as conquerors. And this time we shall remain for 10 years, for 20, if necessary, forever. Carl Schmitt himself will determine how long. For we shall not leave until Carl Schmitt has come to realize that he himself is responsible for not only the past, but the future. We have rid him of Hitler and the General Staff and Nazism and militarism. But we have not rid him of Frederick and Bismarck and the Kaiser, of his history and his tradition. That he must do for himself. Until he does, he is still a potential enemy of civilization. Only when he does can he take his place in the society of man. Then and then only will the German farmer, the German mailman, the German cop be like the folks back home. Then and then only can beautiful Germany, industrious Germany, cultured Germany join the peaceful nations of the world.